Brandon Adams versus Francisco Veron, 10 rounds in the 154-pound division. This is the co-main event of Elijah Pearson, San Martin. Let's get into it. Let's start with their respective records. Brandon Adams, 23 wins, 3 losses, and 15 wins by way of knockout. Veron, 14 wins, no losses, 1 draw, and 10 wins by way of knockout. Brandon Adams is back in the ring for the second time this year after a victorious victory over Serhij Boachuk. I want to start right there, right? Coming off of a long layoff generally doesn't really go well for fighters, right? Adams' first fight back, he faced Ismael Villarreal, who's been in some close fights himself, and he came up short a couple of those close fights and didn't get the victory. But as the fight started, neither men were really doing too much. The first few rounds, there was not a whole lot of action, and I felt like that worked towards Brandon Adams because he got to fight at a pace that was slow, right, and controlled, kind of like sparring, right, where you move at your own pace. And if your opponent is not bringing the pressure to you and is not imposing his will, you're able to find your groove because you can control the rhythm, the aggression, the pace of the fight. He was never really overwhelmed at any point in this fight. So he was able to get into his groove. Not a whole lot of action in the first round. Adams' best work in that first round was in that last 20 seconds when he landed some really nice shots and started going and targeting the body. What I like about Brandon Adams, he doesn't have a whole lot of wasted motion. He takes what's given to him. He came forward, but he was accurate with his approach. I feel like Adams, to me, is a good, solid fighter, especially when he's against the ropes. He's a better counterpuncher than he looks. Villarreal pushed the pace the last 30 seconds and caught Adams on the ropes, but Adams never panicked. He fired back shots of his own. Against the ropes, it was that counter hook against Boachuk that took him out. So he seems to be very comfortable under duress, especially when he can feel his shoulders against the ropes. Now, the third round against Villarreal, both guys started to open up a little bit more. At times, both guys were missing with their power punches, and they were missing wide. But Adams was going to the body in the first few rounds, and even going into that third, Adams' corner was just like, yo, I'm telling you, go to the body. The timing is there. It's now to go to the body. And he caught Villarreal with the left hook body shot that was partially blocked, but he came back to that same shot from in that same side, and it got through. And it was one of those punches, where you just heard it, and you heard the impact when the hand touched the body, and you could just tell that it was over with. You know what I'm saying? Villarreal had a delayed reaction. He was down, then he tried to get up, but then he couldn't fully stand up. It was just a beautifully well-placed, timely shot, and the power is still there from Brandon Adams. And I got to be honest, I did not see a whole lot of ring rust, partially because what I said at the beginning, where he didn't feel overwhelmed. He could get into his groove and work into his groove because Villarreal, I think, gave him a little bit too much respect. But what a body shot. What a comeback win against a younger fighter. Now let's talk about Francisco Veron, The first time that I've actually heard of him wasn't really too long ago. It was against Jahai Tucker, in all honesty. And I thought Jahai Tucker, I didn't think it was going to be an easy fight, but I thought that Tucker was going to have his way. But early on, that was definitely not the story, Veron came to fight. I'm saying? That man was having success, landing combinations on Jahai Tucker, and it seemed like he found his timing and his groove very early in the fight. Veron isn't a flashy fighter by no means, He's calculated, he's well conditioned, and he's a high work rate type of guy. And he can take a punch. He's got a long wingspan, so he can loop in shots that may seem like he's close to you, but there's a little bit of gap, a little bit of distance. He's a very consistent fighter, He just comes forward and he throws, but he does use his jab, right? It's calculated, and I think he does a good job of mixing up his attacks well. I thought both men tested each other, right? Both men had their moments. Both men had their rounds. Some people still felt like it wasn't a draw. Some people felt like Veron won the fight. Some people felt like Jahai Tucker won the fight. And I'm not mad at the result and what the outcome was. There were some pretty close rounds in that fight. I felt Veron was strong in the first 4 rounds, and Tucker turned things up in the second part of the fight, particularly those last 3 rounds. Both men were tired. Both men were exhausted by the time that bell rang. But man, it was a hard, tough, close fight. And Veron, man, he got my respect. I didn't know too much about him, but that fight made me watch a couple more and made sure that I'm like, man, when he fights, I got to go make sure that I check those out. So I felt like he put forth a good performance defensively. He's there to get hit, and Tucker countered him very nicely in that fight. Nice body shots, nice headshots, but Tucker had to earn that draw. Because Tucker had to fight through some adversity, man. He was fighting with the level of desperation in that fight as well, too. A good level of desperation, because when you already have one loss on your resume, a second one, promoters look at you a little bit differently. And Tucker's eye was starting to swell up a little bit after their 5th round. So good fight, man. Veron had to use his legs in the last round because, again, Tucker turned up the physicality, but both men did look tired, man. Both men gave their all, hard-fought 8-round fight, and they put forth both a great performance and put forth a great show. Now, Brandon Adams, he's fought an aggressive style like that before when he fought Serhij Boachuk. And Adams' explosiveness, it was showing in that fight. He was landing nice body shots. He was getting outworked to me in some rounds, but he was landing the more eye-catching shots. But Boachuk felt like he was just doing slightly a little bit more in the rounds, and he was just slowly chipping away with punches from all over, from all angles, whether they were all getting through or some were blocked. Boachuk just kept throwing, just kept touching, just kept throwing, and his consistency from the judge's perspective seemed like it won him a bunch of those rounds. Now, Adam lost the point in that fight. He was digging low under the belt a couple times. He got that to the point. And Boachuk seemed like he was finding his groove, finding in pace in the second half of the fight. But he got caught with his hands down on the ropes, and Adams made him pay for it with that left hand that stumbled Boachuk's legs, and he never recovered from that, and he would end up being stopped. It's a shame because he was doing so well. Seemed like momentum was starting to turn in his favor, but he let his guard down, and Brandon Adams made him pay at the right time in the right moment. So he knows how to close out a show when his opponent is hurt. Boachuk is a tough cat. We saw a couple of his fights. We just saw him fight recently, and he took some hard shots. So Brandon Adams' shot was timely placed in the right spot because Boachuk is a warrior. It's not easy to do, and Brandon Adams stopped him. It goes to show that he knows how to maneuver against a pressuring fighter. In Veron's most recent fight against Angel Ruiz, I thought he fought very well. He ended the rounds very strong. I felt like Ruiz outworked him for the most part, but Veron landed the more eye-catching shots. And in the second half of the fight, he started to really separate himself. Both men had each other hurt a few times. It was a great back and forth fight, a lot of action. Veron used his footwork, his boxing ability, and he was just better defensively, and that worked in his favor on the night. It seemed like he never really let Ruiz get comfortable in the fight. Ruiz would go to the head, go to the body, use his jab, but every time that Ruiz probably felt like he was getting into a groove, man, Veron would fire back, hit him with a power shot, and that would back up Ruiz and make him a little hesitant about coming in as easily as he was before. So it was a very tough, hard-earned win for Veron, but it was a wide victory at the same time. So Veron can fight, man. I mean, the young man isn't coming in to play around. He's undefeated, so he does not know how to lose. This is one of the more interesting matchups on the card for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it unfolds. So who wins? Before I give my pick on this fight, I have something real quick to share. You know, I'm always looking to bring more light, more value, more opportunities for the community. I've been working on a few different things in recent weeks to not just grow the channel, but as I said, to continue to provide as much value as I can to each of you in our community. With that being said, I got some exciting news to share. I'm happy to announce my partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Expert. It's a great opportunity for you to join some of the best sports books to get the best odds and new user offer. All you have to do is head over to my dedicated page at signupexpert.com/the breakdown to explore a selection of sports books tailored to your region, each with its own unique offerings. So if you want to place a bet this weekend and on this fight and beyond, check out the link to find the best options for you in your region. Every sign up does support the channel, and it helps the channel grow and to expand and to create more opportunities, not just for me, but for our community. You know, I'm always looking out for you guys as best as I can. You can easily find the link in the description below this videos and videos moving forward. So get down there and check it out and find the best option for you. Now, let's get back to the video. This is going to be a good fight, man. You know, Adams is more explosive and more athletic, and I think he's the bigger puncher than Veron and just the general stronger fighter. But the pace is going to be pushed here. It's not going to be as settling as it was when he fought Villarreal. Veron's going to push that face. He has a great conditioned body, great conditioned work, high work rate, high volume. And Veron is steady and consistent from the jump, from start to finish, man. So, you know, can Adams keep up with that pace? You know, he's 35 now and Veron is 10 years younger. Will that have anything to do with it? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see. You know, I think it depends if Veron uses that pace to his advantage. The younger fighter should have a higher work rate, should be able to hold their conditioning a little better. It's not always the case, but on paper, you would think that's how it should go. If this fight is at a slow pace, more of a boxing type of fight, I favor Brandon Adams to win the fight. But if it's a fast-paced fight, a lot of volume, high work rate, I favor Veron. I think Adams is going to land the more eye-catching punches, more powerful shots, but I think Veron is going to let his work rate be his strength in this fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. There's a lot at stake here for both men. I could see both guys having their ways in different stages of this fight. But I don't think the old dog is cooked, man. I think Brandon Adams, I think he's coming back stronger. He looks more motivated than ever. And I think he's ready to get things back on track. The time off, at least from what we've seen so far, hasn't worked against him. And maybe the time off helped him coming back. And he came back and he didn't take a tune-up fight. He didn't take a light fight. Villarreal is a strong, young fighter, you know. But I do think he can get outworked against Francisco Veron if he is not careful and he doesn't look through him. Veron is a real fighter. That's a fighter through and through. But I think those eye-catching shots, the judges will like that. And I think that is going to work in his favor. I also think Brandon Adams is a better inside fighter than Veron. And so for me, I don't know who the favorite is in this one, man, but I'm going with the old veteran Brandon Adams to win this fight by decision. So those are my thoughts. I would love to hear from you. How do you think this one goes? Who do you have winning this one? Let me know in the comment section below. So with all that being said, if you've been watching the video of this one, do me a favor and like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. And we'll definitely see you next time.